Some of the most important skills for happiness and success in school and in life are being able to stay focused and pay attention, creative problem solving, thinking outside the box, reasoning, playing with ideas and facts in your mind, being able to delay gratification and stay the course, even though the reward might be a long time in coming. The self-control to not put your foot in your mouth. Being able to resist temptations and not act impulsively. Being able to take advantage of serendipity. The flexibility to adjust to change demands or priorities. All of those are executive functions. Children need healthy executive functions if they are to thrive. Executive functions refers to a family of different mental processes needed whenever going on automatic or relying on instinct or intuition would not be a good idea. It either wouldn't be possible or it would lead to a bad result. There are three core executive functions. One is inhibitory control. I'm going to start with that. Inhibitory control involves resisting a strong inclination to do one thing and instead do what's most appropriate or needed. There are two aspects of inhibitory control. Inhibitory control at the level of attention is selective attention or focused attention. So here you see a little boy in a classroom exercising very good selective attention. He's screening out all the distractions in the room and focusing in on what he's doing. And focused attention enables you to be able to concentrate and stay focused. So obviously you need it for walking on a high wire, but for a little child to walk on a line on the ground is as hard as for us to walk on a balance beam or a high wire. So it takes a lot of focus, concentration for them just to walk on a line on the ground. And a good example of when you need focused attention, selective attention, is singing in a round. If any of you have ever done that, you know how hard it is to screen out what the other groups are doing. Young children have a very immature attentional control. They can easily get distracted by beautiful posters on the wall. So first grade and kindergarten teachers love making their classrooms look beautiful by decorating the walls with lots of lovely posters and pictures. It turns out that decorating the walls makes it harder for young children to concentrate on their schoolwork. They get distracted. So Anna Fisher showed that young children are actually better able to pay attention and learn more when the walls are more bare. They can be painted a beautiful color each wall, but more bare. On the other hand, we can underestimate how capable young children can be. Next, you're going to see a video of a 3-year-old showing outstanding perseverance and focused attention, despite lots of distraction around him. The video doesn't have any sound, but I don't think you really need it. Now, how many of you would have had the patience to let him finish and not intervene to help him out? But if we helped him out, he wouldn't have this pride at the end of having done it. So we need to be patient. Give children time to figure out things on their own. Don't intervene too early to help out. We adults tend to want to do, but less is more. Children need opportunities to solve problems on their own. We think we should be talking, offering advice, problem solving, offering possible solutions. We think we should be acting and doing things for them. When a child is struggling, our natural first inclination is to want to get in there and help out. But if you solve the problem, you're the strong, heroic one, and the child is the weak, needy one. Have faith in their ability and their intellect. What children need most from us is to listen to them. Just listen. Don't say anything. Listen with your undivided attention. Provide a sounding board for them to think out loud and work things through on their own. When people are talking, there's no need to do anything but receive them. Just take them in. Listen to what they're saying. Care about it. Most times, caring about it is even more important than understanding it. Let solutions emerge from the child. Becoming comfortable with silence is a necessary and critical aspect of skillful listening. The next slide, yes. The next slide is a poem about fire. What do you need in order to make a fire? What are some of the ingredients you need? Anybody? Oxygen. Yes. What else? What? Yes, you need a source of fire. And what else? Fuel, right. And most of us, we think about making a fire, we think about getting the logs and getting a match or something, right? That's what we think about when we're going to build a fire. We tend not to think about the oxygen so much. We tend not to think about the empty space that you need. And that's what this poem is about. What makes a fire burn is space between the logs, a breathing space. Too much of a good thing, too many logs packed in too tight, can douse the flames almost as surely as a pail of water would. So building fires requires attention to the spaces in between as much as to the wood. When we're able to build open spaces in the same way we have learned to pile on the logs, then we can come to see how it is fuel and the absence of fuel together that makes fire possible. We only need to lay a log lightly from time to time. A fire grows simply because the space is there, with openings in which the flame that knows just how it wants to burn can find its way. And why would I have said this poem in the context of this talk? Right. We need the empty space, the space where we're not doing for them, we're not talking, so that they can do it. And by the way, the need for breathing space also applies to downtime and to the overscheduled child who needs breathing space in his or her life. Children need to believe in themselves. And there are two routes to that. One is to see that you believe in them, that you fully expect them to succeed. Our expectations for a child have a huge effect on how that child does. A famous study called Pygmalion in the Classroom showed that. Is anyone not familiar with Pygmalion in the Classroom? Okay. Expectations often become self-fulfilling prophecies. If we fully expect that a child exposed to multiple severe traumas nevertheless will succeed, the child often will. Goethe said, treat people as if they were what they ought to be, and you help them become what they're capable of being. It's important to communicate loud and clear the faith and expectation that each child will succeed. That's different from putting pressure on the kids to all get A's. Okay? That's not what I mean. I've never seen a toddler who's so fantastic at walking that the toddler gets up and walks the first time. Toddlers fall on the way to walking. That's normal. Maybe in a given day, a toddler will fall 4 or 5 times. It would never occur to us to say on that day, you get a D in walking, right? None of us would say that. We say, don't worry, I'm sure you're going to be able to do that. How different is that from what kids often hear in school. They often hear, you get a D today, instead of, there's no question you're going to be able to do this. And we together are going to figure out a way to make that happen. Samuel Proctor Macy said, you've never failed until you've tried for the last time, and you've never lost until you quit. I particularly love it because of his background. He was born in Arkansas in the segregated South in the early 1900s. He must have encountered a lot of discrimination, setbacks, and failures. Yet he rose to become one of the most highly respected and decorated chemists of the 20th century. His resume is actually very long. You haven't failed till you stop trying. The other route to children believing in themselves is to give them doable challenges. They need opportunities to do things that enable them to see for themselves that they're capable. Doable challenges bring pride, self-confidence, and joy from seeing yourself succeed at something that you know was a stretch, that you know was hard. If you're overprotective, if you want to save a child from ever getting a scratch or from ever being frustrated, you're robbing that child of opportunities to see that he or she can succeed at scary, difficult things. When I was growing up, there used to be an attitude toward women of, don't worry your pretty little head, we'll take care of you. So we're not going to worry. We know you can't do it. You don't have to worry. We'll take care of you. We'll do it for you. And of course, that robs you from being able to see that you could do it yourself, and it's telling you that they don't expect that they can. And that paternalistic attitude is still there, not so much toward women, but very much toward people with disabilities like blindness or toward indigenous people, Native Americans. We need to give people the opportunity to do things that enable them to see for themselves that they're capable. We need to help them try to do what they want to do, even if we think there's a slim chance they'll be able to do it. Another way to show children we believe in them and have faith in them is to give them an important responsibility. A study that showed this is called the Coca-Cola study, because Coca-Cola funded it. It was done in Atlanta, and there was a school in Atlanta where there were several boys in the 5th grade who were horrible behavior problems. Terrible readers, they're doing terrible in school, and they're terrible behavior problems. The administration came to the kids and said, we have a very important responsibility for you. This is very serious. We want you to tutor the 2nd graders who are struggling in reading. They couldn't ask them to tutor the 3rd graders because they didn't read so much better, but they read better than the 2nd graders. Well, very quickly, the behavior problems disappeared. And by the end of the year, not only were the 2nd graders reading better, but the 5th graders were reading better. It's amazing how youth respond when we empower them, when we let them have a voice, to give them a role in decision-making and problem-solving, to give them an important responsibility, to give them a sense of ownership, to let them help work on our problems that we're trying to solve. The second aspect of inhibitory control is self-control. That's inhibitory control at the level of behavior. Self-control involves resisting temptations, not acting impulsively, thinking before you speak or act. Examples of self-control where you need it are many, and they're especially a lot for little kids. For little kids, a lot of their life is all about demands on self-control. Wait your turn, raise your hand, don't grab another child's toy, don't pee in your pants. There are all these demands. Excuse me. And then regardless of your age, there's self-control needed not to react when somebody hurts your feelings by hurting them back and getting in the cycle of tit for tat. It takes self-control not to react immediately. Not blurting out the first thing that comes to mind. Maybe there's an old friend you haven't seen in a long time. You're really looking forward to seeing your old friend. But your first reaction when you see your old friend is, my God, how much weight you gained. You don't say that. You exercise self-control. You want to make your friend feel good. Resisting acting in the heat of the moment. So you dash off this really angry email message, but you don't press send right away, right? To resist jumping to a conclusion about what something must have meant or why somebody did what they did, because we often misinterpret why somebody did what they did. And having the discipline and perseverance to resist the many temptations to quit and not finish what you started, to continue to work even though the reward might be a long time in the future. Self-control saves us from putting our foot in our mouth and making a social faux pas. Think of all the trouble you'd get in if you blurted out the first thing that came to mind, grabbed whatever you wanted without asking or paying, or did other socially inappropriate or hurtful things. If you want to change, if you want to mend your ways, you need self-control. Children with better inhibitory control, that is, children who are more persistent, less impulsive, and had better attention regulation as little kids, later as teenagers, are less likely to make risky choices, have unplanned pregnancies, or drop out of school. And a study showed that 30 years later as adults, they have better health, higher incomes and better jobs, fewer run-ins with the law, and a better quality of life than their peers who, as little kids, had worse inhibitory control. And that's true controlling for almost every variable under the sun. It's based on a study of 1,000 children born in the same city in the same year, followed for 32 years with a 96% retention rate. Yeah, I wish I did the study. Another study of 500 fraternal twin pairs found that the twin with poor inhibitory control at age 5 was more likely than his or her sibling to smoke, perform poorly in school, engage in antisocial behavior at age 12, even though each pair grew up in the same home together. Okay, I'm going to now ask you to do a task that requires inhibitory control. So make believe you have a button for each hand, for each thumb or each forefinger. Just make believe. Nobody's going to know how you do, okay? It's completely anonymous. The rules are, when you see a heart, press on the same side as the heart. And when you see a flower, press on the side opposite to where the flower appears, okay? Heart, same side, flower, opposite. So first you're going to get the easy heart trials, okay? You press on the same side as the heart. Ready? Okay. Excellent. Okay. Now we're going to do flower trials. Press on the side opposite the flower. Good. Okay. Now we're going to combine them. Some trials are going to be heart, some trials are going to be flower, but it's still the same rules. Heart, same side, flower, opposite. Okay. Hopefully some of you made mistakes in that last block, because that's what adults usually do. It's not probably that you forgot the rules, and that's true for kids too. They remember it's heart, same side, and flower, opposite. Even when they're making mistakes, they'll be saying, same, opposite, opposite, same. But their hands aren't doing what they're saying. Even if I gave you a lot of trials, you would be as good on the block of flowers as you are on the block of hearts. You can see that adults are as good on the flowers as they are on the hearts. One's called incongruent, one's congruent. Even if I gave you lots of trials, you're as fast and as accurate. The difference is on the mixed block. We're slower and we make more mistakes. Okay? You can also see that that's true of kids. They're closer on the flower and heart trials and much worse on the mixed block. Okay? But there's something you see in kids that's absent in us adults, which is over here. I just said that we're as accurate on flowers and hearts, but the kids aren't. Kids make more mistakes and are slower on flowers versus hearts. What's the difference between the flower trials and the heart trials? It's the same memory requirement. It's just one rule. In one case, press on the same side. In one case, press on the opposite. So the memory doesn't change. But for hearts, you do what comes naturally. But for flowers, you have to inhibit that and press on the other side. In fact, when they look at this at the level of brain cells, what they see in motor cortex is the neurons first orient toward the stimulus and then have to go in the other direction. So the first inclination is to go toward a stimulus, and it takes self-control, it takes top-down control to go the other way. Even very little kids, though, have great memories. Have any of you ever played concentration with a 4 or 5-year-old? They kill us. They're great, right? Inhibition is a much greater challenge for them than it is for us. And this is a video of a little boy who's particularly good at concentration. The version he's playing is that they're picture cards in a circle, and what he has to do for each one in turn is to find the card that's turned over that matches that card. Okay? Okay, I thought that was far enough to give you an idea. So we also have the kids do this task where neither hand is preferentially activated. And we teach them arbitrary rules. So for one stupid shape, you press on the left, and for the other stupid shape, you press on the right, okay? And then we give them several trials. Okay, after they've done these 2, we add 4 more. So now they have 6 shapes that they have to remember these arbitrary rules for. And incredibly, for kids who are 4 to 9 years of age, the difference in their performance on the block of flowers versus the block of hearts is bigger than the difference in their performance for 6 rules versus 2. Of course, the opposite is true for us. There's no difference in our performance on flowers versus hearts, and we're much worse trying to remember 6 things than just 2. So increasing memory demands is far more difficult for us than increasing demands on inhibition. But the opposite is true for the kids. We may not appreciate how inordinately difficult inhibition is for young children because it's so much less taxing for us. We tend to think of kids as just a smaller, worse version of us. So if our memory is struggling, their memory is going to struggle more. If we're struggling on inhibition, they're going to struggle more. But here it's not just a smaller version of us. It's an inversion. The memory isn't as hard for them as it is for us, but the inhibition is much harder for them than it is for us. Okay, second executive function is working memory, holding information in mind and working with it. Working memory is critical for making sense of anything that unfolds over time, because that always requires holding in mind what happened earlier and relating that to what's happening now. So it's critical for anything that involves language. For oral language, that's obvious. You no longer are hearing what I said before, so you have to hold in mind what you heard earlier and relate that to what you're hearing now. But it's also true for reading, because even at the level of a sentence, rarely can you see all the words at the same time. So you have to hold in mind what you read earlier and relate that to what you're reading now. It's also true for cause and effect. Let's say you get a reaction from somebody. If you don't remember what you did, it's like, why are you reacting that way? What'd I do? Working memory is essential for reasoning and creative problem solving, because they require holding ideas and information in mind and playing with them, relating one to another, reordering priorities, etc. And another way to think about working memory is at times when you need to hold information in mind when you're working on something else. So for example, let's say several people raise their hands with comments, and I call on somebody before I call on you. You want to follow what's happening in the person's question and my response, but you still want to remember what you wanted to say. Okay, so that takes working memory. What I do is sometimes not tax the working memory and write myself a note of what I wanted to ask, because I'm afraid I won't keep it in mind. What people call working memory could also be called keeping your attention focused on what you're holding in mind and working with. It's just semantics to call it working memory or attention. Working memory and just holding information in mind, short-term memory, are different. Working memory is different from short-term memory. And I wanted to take a few minutes to emphasize this, because if you have kids who get evaluated on IQ tests or neuropsych tests, I want you to understand the difference. Because a lot of times people say they're assessing working memory, but they're not. They're assessing short-term memory. So I want you to see the difference. And there's lots of scientific evidence that these are separated. They, in factor analyses, they cluster separately, and they rely on different systems in the brain. Okay, the forward-digit span test, which is on many IQ tests, many neuropsych tests, you need to remember the items in the order in which they appeared. So I'm going to show you a sequence of digits, and then say them back just in the order in which you saw them. Okay? Okay, can anybody say them back? Fantastic, okay. Very good. Okay, that was short-term memory. Now, I want you to say the digits back in numerical order, from the smallest to the largest number, okay? So say them back in numerical order, smallest to largest. Okay, can anybody do that? You guys are really good. But I hope this was harder for you than the first. This is working memory. You have to manipulate the items in mind. The first set was just holding items in mind, okay? Holding items in mind is much easier than working memory, and it's different. Okay, children, young children can't do this with numbers. You know, 6, 7, even 8-year-olds have a lot of trouble working with numbers. So what we do there is we use familiar things like animals. So again, you're going to see a series of things. This time it's going to be animals. And say them back in order of size from smallest to largest. Okay, anybody? Gosh, very good. Very good, guys. Okay, so when you're testing it, you keep making the list longer and longer until the child is wrong at 2 in a row. And that's how you get their span. Okay, another example of how working memory and short-term memory are different is illustrated here. This is like hearts and flowers, although it's a little different. So now the rules are, when you see a butterfly, press on the left. And when you see a frog, press on the right. Okay? So instead of same side, opposite side, it's butterfly left, frog right. Okay, so first we're going to practice. Regardless of whether it appears on the right or the left, whenever you see a butterfly, press left. Whenever you see a frog, press right. Okay? Butterfly left, frog right. Okay, so now we're going to do it for real. You'll get more and it'll be a little bit faster, the same speed as you got for hearts and flowers. Okay. Remember the mixed block of hearts and flowers. which block did you find harder? The block you just did of frog and butterfly, or the last block, the mixed block of hearts and flowers? So for frog and butterfly, all you have to do is pay attention to object identity. Is it a butterfly or is it a frog? But if you know it's a heart or a flower, it still doesn't tell you where to respond. You have to join the object identity with the spatial location. Only that tells you where to respond. So you have to integrate two things as opposed to just paying attention to one. The other part of it is you don't have same side or opposite side hands. So you have to work with that information and translate it into left or right. So when the kids are saying same, opposite, opposite, same, if it was left, right, right, left, they would be getting it right. But same, opposite isn't telling them which side to press on. They have to then translate that to conjoining the stimulus with its location to say whether it's right or left. So they still require the same amount of inhibition. When a stimulus is on the side opposite to its associated rule, you still have to inhibit pressing on the side where the stimulus is. But hearts and flowers requires working memory, whereas butterfly and frog only requires holding the rules in mind. You don't have to manipulate them at all. So here's the results for the kids and us. Everybody makes more mistakes and is slower on hearts and flowers, or the dots mixed, than they are on frog and butterfly. Frog and butterfly is easier for everybody at every age. Okay, working memory and inhibitory control each independently predict both math and reading competence from the earliest grades through university, often better than IQ. The last core executive function is cognitive flexibility, and that involves seeing an issue from different perspectives. Think about something in a whole new way, thinking outside the box, or seamlessly adjusting to change or unexpected situations. It also involves having the flexibility to take advantage of a sudden opportunity, serendipity, to change course when needed, to get you to your desired goal despite unexpected obstacles, and to admit you were wrong when you get new information. An example of poor cognitive flexibility is given by Alexander Graham Bell. When one door closes, another door opens. But we often look so long and so regretfully upon the closed door that we do not see the ones which open for us. If there's a problem we haven't been able to solve, can you think outside the box to conceive of the problem, frame the problem in a whole new way, come up with a completely different way of attacking it? If we can't get enough funding for education, can we think of a new way of framing that or attacking that so we can get more money for education? Einstein said, if you always do what you always did, you'll always get what you always got. Karen Pape is a medical doctor who works with children who have motor coordination problems that everybody else has given up on. And she's able to succeed with these kids by thinking outside the box. And the video is almost 20 minutes, so I didn't want to take time to show it. I can show it this afternoon if you're interested. But it's a very good example of thinking outside the box. Okay. One of the classic tests for studying frontal lobe function or executive function in adults is called the Wisconsin card sort test. An easier version of that for 3 to 5-year-olds is called the dimensional change card sort. It's only 2 dimensions, only color and shape, and only 2 values per dimension. It's just red or blue or truck or star. Okay? So when you're sorting by color, the blue truck goes with the blue star. But when you're sorting by shape, that same blue truck now goes with the red truck. Okay? 3-year-olds are fantastic at sorting by color or shape. Doesn't matter which one you start with, they ace it. Okay? The problem comes when you switch. They tend not to switch. They keep sorting by the first way they sorted. So very few 3-year-olds, only 20% are able to switch. They keep going by the first way. And I'm going to show you two videos, one with a child starting with shape and one with a child starting with color. So you'll believe me, it's not that the first child makes a mistake because shape is easier. It doesn't matter which one you start with. And the first one, the little girl is very verbal. It's very unusual. Kids don't usually talk this much. And she tells you what she's thinking.
This is the star. Where does it go? Go ahead. So point and show me where the trucks go. Excellent. And where do the stars go? Good job. This is a truck. Where does it go? Go ahead. So trucks go here and stars go here. Here we go, Caleb. This is a star. Where does it go? Excellent. Okay. Now we're going to start playing a color game. Remember, in the color game, red ones go here and blue ones go here. So, this is a blue one. Where does it go? Go ahead. Well, remember, we're playing the color game. In the color game, blue ones go here and red ones go here. So this is a blue one. Where does it go? Where do you think it goes? Where do you think it goes? Where do you think it goes? Then take it and put it there. Okay, so point to where the blue ones go. Very good. And where do the red ones go? Very nice. This is a red one. Where does it go? Go ahead. Where do you think it goes?
This has a star.
Whichever one you think. If that's what you think, right there. Okay. Just remember, in the color game, blue ones go here and red ones go here. This is a blue one. Where does it go? Where do you think it goes? Okay. So point, show me where the red ones go. And where the blue ones go. Excellent. Very nice. This is a blue one. Where does it go? What do you think? Go ahead.
That's a truck, so it has to do with truck.
Okay, so here's starting with color. And the first thing is so easy for the little boy that you can see he's getting quite bored.
The blue ones go here, the red ones go here. This one's red, where does it go? We did. Where did the blue ones go? Beautiful. Where did the red ones go? Awesome, you got it. You're so good at this. This one's blue, where does it go? The red ones go here, the blue ones go here. This one's red, where does it go? Where do the blue ones go? Awesome. Where do the red ones go? Amazing. Very good. This one's blue, where does it go? Okay, so we're not going to play the card game anymore. We're going to play the shape game again. Remember the shape game? The trucks go here, the stars go here. Where do the trucks go? Good job. Where do the stars go? All right, high five. Yeah, high five for that one. This one's a star. Where does it go? The trucks go here, the stars go here. This one's a truck. Where does it go? Where did the truck go? Where did the stars go? Good job. Where did the trucks go? Perfect. This one's a star. Where does it go?
Okay. We all did this when we were 3 years old. So, as you saw, the child has clearly in mind what the new sorting criterion is. There's no question whether we're playing color or shape. And the child knows the rules for the new criterion, because if you ask him or her, they tell you, right? So before they see the stimulus, they're all set. They got everything right. And then they see that darn stimulus. And the stimulus matches both the old way and the new way. It pulls them back to thinking in the old way. So we talk about the core problem as attentional inertia, that once they focus their attention on one dimension, their attention sort of gets stuck there, and they need to disengage from or inhibit their previous way of thinking about the stimuli. Okay, and that was work with Natasha Kirkham and Lauren Cruz, who are now professors in their own right. It's not enough to know something and remember it. You have to get that knowledge into your behavior. People have assumed that if kids knew what they should do, well, of course they would do it. And if they didn't, they were intentionally misbehaving. If you know what you should do and you don't do it, well, of course, you're intentionally being bad. But between knowing and implementing, another step long ignored is often needed. When there's a strong competing response, that response has to be inhibited, and young children may not be able to do that. A child may know what he or she should do and want to do that, but still not be able to act accordingly. Natasha computerized the test so we could test adults. Okay, so she shows you where you respond for each, and you don't have to remember where the trucks or the red things go. You can see it on the screen the whole time. You don't have to remember which dimension we're doing because it tells you what dimension we're sorting by. And then you see the stimulus, okay? And remember, kids make very few mistakes on the first block, but many more mistakes on the second when they have to switch, okay? So you'll be glad to know that we adults can switch. We don't make mistakes on the second block. But if you look at our speed, if you look at our reaction time, we show the same pattern as the kids. So it's more subtle in us. It's not whether we're right or wrong, it's whether we're faster or slower. And if you look over the whole session, we can give many more trials to adults than we give to kids. And over the whole session, if you start with shape first, you tend to stay faster on shape. If you start with color first, you tend to stay faster on color. So the same inertia that characterizes the 3-year-old is still there in us. It's just more subtle. Adults show many of the same cognitive biases that we laugh at in kids. It's just that the biases are more subtle in us. We're better able to inhibit them. And we give lots of examples in this other paper. Now, each dimension on the card sort task is an intrinsic property of the stimulus. The truck is a truck and the truck is a red thing. They're both part of that stimulus. What if both dimensions are not properties of the stimulus? What if color is not a property of the truck, but the background on which the truck appears? So every card has color and shape, but the stimulus itself only has shape, okay? For us, it wouldn't make a twit of difference, right? It doesn't matter at all for us. Will it matter for the kids? It does. So they succeed twice as early if color is the background rather than the color of the stimulus. And they succeed, here it shows that twice as many pass at a given age, and here it shows that they succeed 6 months earlier. So with the separated dimensions with color as the background, 2.5-year-olds perform like 3-year-olds do on the regular card sort, and 3-year-olds perform on the separated the way 3.5-year-olds do on the regular. So it doesn't make it totally easy, but it makes it easier. The problem for the 3-year-olds is having to wrap their head around that something can be a red thing and a truck. It's like something isn't both a rabbit and a bunny. It can't be. It's got to be either a rabbit or a bunny. It can't be both. There are many tests that show this in 3-year-olds. So John Flavel developed appearance reality tests. So he shows this to a child, And the 3-year-old may be 3, but he's not stupid. He says it looks like a rock. It's exactly the right answer. And then the experimenter shows the child that it really is a sponge because you can squeeze it. So now the child is supposed to wrap his head around that it looks like a rock, but it really is a sponge. A 3-year-old will have no part of this, okay? Either it looks like a rock and it really is a rock, or a few of them say it looks like a sponge and it really is a sponge. But it can't be both. It's not both a rock and a sponge. Okay, so they have trouble with the same thing being looked at from being two different things. But if it's not the same thing, if color is the background, then it's easier. And if it's only one dimension, then it's easier still. So if you do a reversal test, where first you put the trucks with the trucks and the stars with the stars, and then you say, now we're going to play a silly game. And now the stars go in the truck bin, and the trucks go in the star bin. So you're reversing where things go. They succeed even earlier. So at 2.5 years of age, they can do reversals where there's only one dimension. Then at 3.5, they can do the separated dimensions, where they have to use color and shape, but color isn't part of the shape. Then finally, at 4.5 years, like your child you mentioned on the Uno, they can do the card sort. But it's not until 7.5 years of age that they can flexibly switch on a trial-by-trial basis between color and shape. Okay, it comes in much later. In order to switch, you need to both activate the new rule in your mind, in working memory, and you have to inhibit the old way of thinking about the stimuli, the old rule. So you need both working memory and inhibition to do this switching. So this switching comes in later than working memory or inhibition. Cognitive flexibility comes in years later than working memory or inhibition.